I got 7 games off my shelf of shame in February, and we're going to talk about those as well as what I think board game reviews should look like. Hello and welcome to Nelson All Over. I'm Nelson and today we are talking about my February monthly recap as well as talking about what board game reviews should look like. So everything will be timestamped in the description, or I guess in the video, so if you want to jump to any part of that, just please do so. But we're going to talk about some of the games that I played in February, and then we're going to dive into reviews, especially what reviews are going to look like on this channel. And the way that I want to start talking about these February, or I guess these monthly recaps, is talk about specifically my 3 resolutions for the year, which is to have 400 plays, to have 10 games on, or in each index of 10, effectively playing 10 games 10 times, and then reducing my shelf of shame by at least 1 every single month. Now that third one was pretty tough this month because I got 6 new games. I got 6 whole new games. And so I was able to play 7 games, and that was a lot. There's a lot of new games and we're going to talk about them. So we talked about in the January recap that the 400 plays was a pretty small goal. Now that I'm looking at it, now that I'm tracking all of my LCG plays, we're not going to talk a ton about the LCGs in this video. If you are curious about the LCGs, I have a whole other channel called Nelson All Over Cards that's linked down below. You can go find that and watch all the LCG content. But since this is the board game and I have that whole other channel, let's specifically talk about the board games and not spend too much time on the LCGs. But I played 62 games in February, bringing the yearly total through February to 129 games. So that's 400 games, if we're kind of on track to hit that in like May. So very much underestimated how many games I play, which I think is a good thing. Like, I love playing games, but that one we're gonna hit pretty quickly. So I'm curious how many we will end up with. I'm thinking we'll probably be around 700 plays. It just kind of depends on how the rest of the year shapes up, but a lot of games. The next one is an H index of 10. So this year I am up to an H index of 6 already. So that's pretty exciting. It's the 3 LCGs. It is Hanabi. So I played a lot of Hanabi. We'll talk about that here in a second. My City. So I recently discovered Boardgame Arena. So I've been playing a significant amount of My City. I have 10 plays of My City already. So that's pretty exciting. And then Wildtails of Pirate Legacy. So Wildtails is a game that was sent to me by Boat and Chat Games. We'll talk about that again here in a second. And then the last goal of the year is to reduce that shelf of shame by 1. I had an unboxing videos where I got 6 new games. I'm not counting Aeons, and that one's more of an expansion in my mind. But 6 new games, I played 7. So let's talk about the 7 new games I played. A lot of these I only got to play 1 time, and so we'll briefly touch on some of those. The first one that I want to talk about is Snack Time. That's a roll and write. It was a Kickstarter that was delivered a couple of months ago. I've had it for a while, but it's designed by McKay, who's part of the board Vengers, or I guess the company that he works with called Backfire Games. And it's a roll and write game where you are you're controlling monsters in the city and you're trying to snack on pedestrians as they walk across the city. It's kind of a spatial puzzle where you're trying to connect your monsters through sewer pipes into different like grates, and then based on what human or what person is walking on that grate, they have a specific requirement needed to eat them. So if your monster has set up and has the required teeth and eyes and tentacles and everything to eat them, then you do get to snack on them. And some of them are good, some of them are bad. You have to kind of strategically plan out who you want to eat and when, so that you're not eating someone that's going to come and chop like off all your tentacles. So another game that I got off my shelf of shame was Hickory Dickory. This is a game I played pretty recently. I think it was like it was last week. So it was in the last week of February. One of those that just kind of get me to that -1 shelf of shame. Hickory Dickory is a game by Plaid Hat Games. I talked about it in my PAX recap, but it is finally here. I got it. It shipped, and it's really cute. I enjoy it. It's a bit less strategic than I was expecting just from like the demo and what I had heard about it. I thought it was going to be a little bit more involved, but at 2 players it plays pretty quickly and it's pretty lighthearted. It's a nice medium weight type game that feels really good when you're playing it. I really enjoyed it. But to kind of give a quick recap of Hickory Dickory, what you're doing is you're controlling mice and you're going on this royal scavenger hunt, trying to find different tiles, which are these acrylic azul-like tiles that have different colors and different patterns on them. And you're trying to turn those in for points to Lord Cuckoo, who is putting on the scavenger hunt. And then if you get specific types of tiles, you get to fill up your personal player board, and that can score you bonus points. And the whole gimmick is that you're riding around on a clock, and mice can hop on the minute hand of the clock, and that points to the 12 different actions. And based on where you are on that minute hand determines your priority and actions and how far you can go. People can push you off the minute hand. It's a hilariously good and well implemented concept. I think it's very unique. That's probably the best way to describe the game. It's like nothing I've ever really played before, which is pretty fun. At 2 players, it worked fairly well. I think at 4 and 5 or at 3 and 4 players, it could get fairly chaotic, but at 2 players, I enjoyed it. It's not something that I would take super seriously because a lot of the tiles can be a little bit of a kind of a luck of the draw of if you're seeing the symbols that you particularly need. However, what we did figure out after just 1 play, and we need a couple more plays with this, is that your personal scoring board is not going to be the majority of your points. I think that there is that's a nice to have, but if you can focus on kind of the contracts that are out there, so each round you have 2 different contracts that Lord Cuckoo is looking that can score you additional points if you turn in those specific tiles. Trying to optimize and get those, I think, is probably the way to go. And I'm interested to try it more because it's going to be one that I think the strategy is going to kind of evolve and unveil itself the more times you play it. But after 1 play, really great. It took only about an hour. However, what I will say is I hate the fact that the minute hand or the time hand on the board, it's like a 3D component that you move around, but you have to take it apart every single time you want to put it away or put it together. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating how hard it is to put it or to take it apart. It's like a locking mechanism. Maybe I just haven't figured it out yet, but that pretty much it's a dissuasion to pull it out frequently. Just of how much I disliked putting it away. But regardless, the gameplay was really cool. I got to play Radlands. Radlands, this again I had played before, but this one was my own copy. I got that off the shelf of shame. Played that head to head with my wife. She enjoyed it more than I thought that she would, so that's good. I think she said she would play it again. It's not her favorite type of game, but she enjoyed it enough to give it another try. But this is a head to head kind of card battling system where instead of like building your own deck, you're taking from a communal deck, and each card is a multi-use card. You can discard it for an effect, or you can play it for an effect, and you're trying to destroy your opponent's 3 bases. Really pretty, excellent graphics, and just a lot of strategy that kind of goes into it. I thought the push-pull nature of it was pretty cool. It came down to like the wire. I like to think that. I think I got beat pretty handily, but I like to think it came down to the wire. But it is a game that I'm excited to continually pull out. It's a pretty easy setup, a pretty easy play. I think it took about 45 minutes. That was the first play. So I think with multiple plays, you could easily get this down in about 30 minutes and have a pretty good time with it. But I talked about that a lot in my PAX recap. So let's talk about my vacation where we got to play a lot of new games. So we went with another couple to Italy. So we did about a week in Italy, and we were traveling around, but like in the evenings when we were hanging out at the hotel, most of the hotels had like a bar section, and we were able to sit there, drink wine, and play some games. And so the games that we got to play were all very small box games because they had to travel overseas. We couldn't take a Dead of Winter overseas. It just was not going to be feasible. And so we took a lot of smaller box games, a lot of card games, and we got to play those. And so the rest of my new plays came from that trip. The first game that I want to talk about is Wildtails. This is a 1 to 2 player game which my wife and I were playing. We did a few days in New York before we actually went over to Italy, and so when it was just the 2 of us, we started this campaign. It's a campaign where it's a button shy game, so I wish I had it like here to show you, but it'll be in the corner. But if you remember, it's a pocket-sized game that is a legacy game, which is super cool, and we will be doing more of a deep dive on that, a more review on that here in the future. I have not played through the entire campaign yet. I think we're probably about 5 or 6 games, which is about halfway through the campaign, but I want to finish the campaign before I do a full review on it. But it is a game that is a ton of fun. It's a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. It also, we figured out that we were playing a couple of rules wrong after about 2 games, which made it significantly more challenging, which was a good thing because it was a cakewalk before that. But we'll talk about all of those like new rules and nuances and things I liked and things I didn't like in the review video that's going to come out. But I did really enjoy how portable it was. We were able to play it pretty much anywhere. You could play it on the train, you could play it in a hotel room. It was just really easy to transport, and it brought that legacy experience with some pretty immersive gameplay to a hotel room, which I thought was really well done. And so we'll talk about that more. And then the card games that I brought, we got to bring Ghost of Christmas, which is a game that I got at PAX. Off of my shelf of shame, we got to play Tome, which is a game that I got at Origins, which is another trick-taking game. Tome is pretty interesting. Tome is a game where each suit is like a magical power, and whenever you're playing cards, you can activate different abilities on those cards. So like the blue cards like to modify different values on cards. The red cards like to increase their value, and so like the red 2, I think it got +2 for every other red card played in the suit. But if you ever play off suit, you don't get your ability, but then every subsequent card does get an ability. And so it's a team-based game where you're playing across the table, and so there is some strategy in breaking the chain is what it was called, so that maybe the next person gets to play a free card, but also your partner gets to play a free card. It was a little bit chaotic for my taste, but it was interesting to play. And then we played Saboteur at 4 players. Saboteur is a social deduction game in a box where you are dwarfs trying to tunnel down the table. Like, it's a physically limited space, and so like you lay your cards out 7 card lengths, you measure it out, and in your hand you are playing cards to extend your tunnel, trying to get down to the treasure. And the Saboteur, if there is one, is trying to divert the other players from getting the treasure. And so there's 3 cards at the end. One of them is the treasure, and 2 of them are like kind of detours that reroute you, and you're trying to play these crazy cards that route you in all different sorts of ways to get to the gold or the treasure. And based on who gets there, you get points, and you play over, I think it was like 4 rounds, and whoever has the highest amount of points wins. If you don't reach the gold, like the Saboteur is able to successfully thwart your attempts to getting to the gold, then the Saboteur gets to score even more points than would potentially be possible. I think they score 4, and the maximum amount of points you can score as a good dwarf is 3. And so that was pretty fun. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if I'd ever play it at 4 again. I do think that it would shine at like 5 or more, because at 5 you get 2 Saboteurs in the deck, and it is the mechanism of like Dead of Winter where there's not always a Saboteur. If you're playing with 4 players, you take 5 cards, and one of them is a Saboteur. You shuffle them up and deal out a roll to everybody. And so the Saboteur could be set aside. You could be playing with all good people, and that's cool. That's cool because you're always trying to figure out if there is one. Now, if you're playing with 6 people, or 5 people, you have 2 Saboteurs, so you know that there's a Saboteur. There's potentially 2 Saboteurs, and so that makes it kind of interesting, because what we felt in the 4-player game is that it was really hard for the Saboteur to contribute and thwart the other players, because in the game you can play different event cards that can hurt or help other players, and if you do identify yourself as the Saboteur, then the other 3 players are going to just continuously throw cards at you to stop you from hurting them, and then that prevents you from doing anything on your turn. And so if you have 2 Saboteurs, the other Saboteur can kind of help you a little bit. And then also, if you just don't make yourself known as a Saboteur, you're not going to win. And so because it's super easy to just tunnel down, not super easy, it is fairly easy to tunnel down and get to those like reward cards. And so you have to be deceptive in how you're thwarting the attempt. But the couple of times the Saboteur didn't really come close to winning, and I think that those chances go up when you start adding multiple Saboteurs in the same at the same table, and I think that could get to be some pretty compelling and fun gameplay, and so I'm excited to try that more. We have a game weekend coming up later in March that I'm hoping that we can get a table of 5 or more people down and play a game of Saboteur. So it was a social deduction game. Typically I don't enjoy social deduction games, but I did like this a little bit more. There's not a lot of lying. There is some, but it's not a lot, and it's just kind of fun to just see where it goes. Those were the new games that I brought on the trip. We also brought Scout, which was pretty well received, which is the game where you're putting on a circus. You can't rearrange the cards in your hand, which is a really fun game. I think I talked about that one in my stocking stuffers, and the link will show up about right here if you want to learn more about that. And we brought Hanabi, and Hanabi is just a great game to bring and play. It's super chill, it's super relaxed. It's the game where you can't look at your own cards, and on your turn you're either giving clues or trying to play cards, but you're playing cards blindly, and you're trying to get highest in each stack of color. And I think we got to 22, max score is 25. We were so close. We really want that perfect score. I'm still hunting for that perfect score. I think it is a combination of a lot of skill and a lot of luck, but I am going to be so satisfied when we finally do get that score of 25. Okay, so let's talk about reviews and how reviews are going to look and how I think reviews are or should be implemented in like the board game space. This all kind of started from a Reddit post that I saw that was titled something along the lines like, how many times should someone play a game before they review the game? And there were a lot of opinions, and I kind of want to talk through that, but I think the best answer and the one that I've kind of resonated with is they need to have played it enough. Whatever that means to them, they need to play it enough so that they've seen all of the aspects of the game in order to give a full, well-rounded, and accurate depiction of what that game is. And what that means going forward on this channel is that transparency. It's pretty much just transparency. There are games out there that I think I could get a understanding and do a full review in 2 to 3 plays. There are also games out there that would take much more than that. And so the type of review and what I want to do on this channel is not necessarily shotgun and do 500 reviews in a year. I want to deep dive and sink my teeth into a game in order to give a very in-depth and well-rounded review. And what that means is playing the game multiple times. And so whenever I am reviewing a game, I thought about doing game reviews on like this type of video on the monthly recaps, but I think I would rather just keep this up into like a podcast format where I'm just kind of talking about different topics. And so like this one is game reviews. Those are going to be specific videos, and I think I'm going to be a little bit more choosy with what reviews I take on. I do want to take reviews that both interest me as well as you as the viewer. So if there are games that you see that I have that you want reviews on, let me know. I will prioritize those because that sounds interesting. And if there are games that I have, I probably like them. And so like, Wildtails is an example of this, right? The first time I played Wildtails, I did not like Wildtails. The second time I played Wildtails, I didn't like Wildtails for a different reason. I thought it was too easy. Then I started learning some rules, and I was like, the third time I was like, okay, that's okay. It's difficult, it's okay. But by the fourth and fifth time, we started actually figuring out the strategy and when you need to do certain actions, and the order of actions matters significantly in that game. And that is not something that I would have discovered after 2 or 3 plays. And so the general consensus is that I need to play a game enough in order to review it, and it will be transparent on how many times I play it and at what player counts. And so if I only play a game 2 times, but I feel like I have had enough exposure to that game in order to give it a review, I will be transparent about that. I'm saying I have played this game 2 times, and this is kind of what this is what I think about the game. Now, I want to be transparent about that just so that you are aware. And I also want to talk about how many times I've played. Most of the time, it's going to be with 2 players. I will get to play games every once in a while with more than 2 players. It's not a super frequent occurrence, and so sometimes when I'm doing reviews, I will call them out as like a 2-player review. I don't feel like I can necessarily give a review for a game that plays 1 to 8, only playing it at 2 players like 4 times, a full review, because the gameplay at 2 is going to be significantly different than the gameplay at 8. Now, I may try and speculate. I think this is going to be a case-by-case basis on what higher player counts look like. Maybe not at like 8, but if it's like a 2 to 4 player game, I have an idea. I've played a lot of games. I have an idea of what 4 players may look like, how that would look differently. Hickory Dickory is an example of this. Hickory Dickory would get fairly chaotic. You would not necessarily be able to plan as much if you have 4 players because there's just more going on the board. That's cool. That's just a different gameplay. But if I do a review of Hickory Dickory, and I have not played it at 4 players, it will be a review at 2 players because that's what I've played. And so, again, transparency is what I am striving for on this channel. I want to connect with you. I want to talk with you about board games. I don't ever want it to be ambiguous or disingenuous of what I have been playing or what I'm trying to review. I want it to be as open and honest with you all as possible because I think that's really important. I think it's really important for people who are watching games, and if you do end up making purchasing decisions based on my videos, I want you to understand where I am coming from as a reviewer, how many times I've played it, who I've played it with, and then take that information and use it to help your decisions. So I want to do some reviews, but I also want to talk more about kind of the state of gaming in general. And so the podcast format that this is every month, I want to talk about different things that are happening in the hobby. Not necessarily just reviews. Like in January, I did the review of Castles of Mad King Ludwig, which was really cool. I enjoyed doing that review, but I think in the future, I'm going to pull that out and do that as a separate video and then talk about something that I wanted to talk about this month on these types of videos, because I do think that if I am doing a review, I want that to be separated from what other games that I've been playing, and I want it to be 2 different things. And then a video like this, where it's like the monthly recap, just kind of talking and connecting, I think this is more of a space to kind of talk about like what we're talking about right now, where reviews or BGA or implementations, legacy, just whatever comes to my mind. I don't really have a plan, but it's just kind of fun to talk. And so that's what I want to do going forward is reviews. And so I guess that opens up the conversation. And what I want to hear from you is, what do you want to see in reviews? Are there things that you do not want to see in reviews? Are there things that turn you off of reviews? Because I am building this channel to connect and work with you all, because I want this channel to be a conversation. I want this to be something that works for you all, to make sure that you are getting the information that you need and it's actually useful information, because that's what I am striving for. So if there is anything that you like to look for, you look to exclude, or you hope that I exclude from reviews, or transparency, whatever it is, let me know in the comments, because it is something that I want to grow and get better at. This is something that I have not really done before, right? I've dived into games very heavily. I've done a couple of reviews on the podcast, but nothing really like this, where it's going to be a video dedicated specifically to one game as a review, not necessarily a strategy guide or anything like that. And so it's new for me. So I'm curious. I want to know what you all think, and I want to know what you all want to see. Please let me know in the comments, because I will definitely read it and take that into account when making review videos. So yeah, anyways, that was February. February was a very busy month. We got a lot of games played and a lot of travel. And so it was exciting and it's busy. I'm excited for what the rest of the year brings. March, I need to not buy as many games, because I got a lot of games now to take off the shelf of shame. And I'm excited to try out some of them. Some of them that I'm really looking forward to that I hope I get to play in March is Mind Management is one of them. And yeah, Mind Management is kind of at the top of my list right now. I really want to, and Brazil. Brazil is the other one. I really want to sink my teeth into Brazil Imperial. So those are the 2 games that I'm really looking forward to in March. What have you been playing? Have you been playing anything cool? Are you looking forward to playing anything in March? Let me know in the comments. I look forward to reading them, and I'll talk to you all later. See you around. Peace.